A nice little update that we got today from the Hasbro Pulse Facebook page. A little video, not very long, but a little video with Hisashi Yuki, one of the designers on the Takara-Tomy side of things, talking about the design history, the Japanese history, and a slight little bit of the development of the HasLab Victory Saber, Star Saber, Victory Leo that will be ending very soon as of this recording. And I mean, it wasn't like a big bombastic super reveal kind of thing. It was just nice to see one of the old guard of the old like 90s Takara-Tomy era, more so just Takara at that point. Just talking about designing that figure, and also he had his hand in the Masterpiece version also, and talking a little bit just about even the prehistory of Star Saber a little bit. It was a nice little video. Yuki was one of those guys that he was at BotCon 2014 in Pasadena, and he didn't do an autograph session, which kills me because I would have loved to get his autograph. He did a panel on the Sunday, I remember, but he was one of those guys that you couldn't get a hold of, and he's a really cool dude. He has a very good history of Transformer product. He joined the company in 1992, and they kind of stuck him with a whole bunch of little side stuff on the Takara side, but he didn't really start doing Transformer stuff until Beast Wars 2nd, where he was thrown in right away doing leader characters, and that would kind of be the thing he'd be doing from that point on, which shows that he probably had a very good knack for it. Because I mean, he did Lio Convoy, he did the Galvatron from Beast Wars 2nd, and then when they did Beast Wars Neo, he did Big Convoy, which still to me I think is one of the greatest Beast Wars toys ever made of that era. And then he would go on to do Car Robots Fire Convoy, which for the longest time was one of the best Optimus Prime convoy toys ever made for forever, in my opinion. And then, of course, you know, he would do Sentinel Prime and Dark of the Moon, the leader class. He would do Optimus Prime and Transformers Go. He'd do the Battle Command Optimus Prime and Age of Extinction. I mean, I could go on and on and on. You know, even like the Transformer Legends stuff. He did the Super Ginrai. He did the big powered set with Diatlas. All these leader characters. So he has a really good knack for that kind of stuff. But one of the big things that he did was the stuff within Masterpieces. He was the one who did that first crazy engineering of Masterpiece Megatron, which supposedly was an adventure in itself. I did a post about it on my Twitter a while back, how it was such a big celebration when they figured out a way to engineer that little gun trigger out of the figure into the leg, and they went out drinking. But his MP24 Star Saber was his big accomplishment. He was very proud of that. He said that when he was in his late teens, back in the day when Transformers Master Force and then later on Victory was on television, he loved those designs, and it kind of in a lot of ways directed him into wanting to then work in the toy companies and work on mecha and stuff like that. And again, like I said, in 92, he would be able to achieve that in his 20s. And that's pretty awesome. But so he did this little thing. You know, he did this little video. I will say it felt like it was probably like all planned at the last second. It kind of had a little bit of an angled shot, the video. It looks like it was a one-man operation. All done in one take. He looked kind of uncomfortable. He's like, oh, okay, let's do this. I felt like he was reading from a teleprompter almost, but he showed some stuff that we never really got to see on a more public manner, which was early designs of Star Saber back in 1987, 1988, 1989. The initial concept that was done by Takashi Kuniharu, which it's interesting because that initial concept that is shown, they mention how Takashi was trying to pull from that Diaclone Microman kind of origin, which Takashi came from, along with a lot of other dudes within the Takara side of things. Takashi best known for the designer of Hot Rod, and at that point didn't really have a lot to do with Transformers. He did a lot of he did Brainstorm, Headmaster stuff. I remember he did Brainstorm, Chrome Dome, Hardhead, Highbrow, Hot Rod, Rodimus Prime, Six Shot, and Snapdragon, I believe. That's the ones I remember off the top of my head. And then, of course, when he would do Transformers Victory, it would be Star Saber, Victory Leo, and Lio Kaiser he was responsible for. But that was a guy that, had a different kind of history. And when he designed Star Saber, and you see this initial design that they showed, and I'm going to post it on my Twitter too in high res because the video is kind of tiny for people. But it showed like Takashi in those initial designs planned, the psycho missiles that would be stored in Star Saber's shoulders that you only really see in the cartoon, never seen in the figures. The way that his face would fold up for the transformation. All the key points pretty much, along with the big sword, Takashi originally planned out. And then Yuki showed a second image, which was Okawara, which, I mean, Kunio, geez, like, this guy was behind practically almost everything in Gundam. So, I mean, just that list alone is staggering, let alone his work with Dragonar, Votum, and personal favorites of mine like Iron Leaguer, and, of course, the Brave series with Transformers as cousins, if you will. And interestingly enough, he also designed Zambot 3, which would then inspire Zambot Ace, which was kind of the prototype to what would be Hot Rod, but that's a whole other story. But then, Kunio kind of took care of like the Star Saber, cleaned it up, Fluoro Deary style in a lot of ways, and then that kind of became the final product that we have in the old Toei animation today. So, it was cool that they showed a little bit of that history, and then Yuki then talked about like how Star Saber was a big deal in Japan and how he was very popular and that he kind of was like one of those, that super robot kind of genre look to him, which up to that point, really, they didn't have that. I mean, even Ginrai that had the combining flavor that we're so used to today, he still had a very Optimus Prime kind of design to him where Star Saber was going with that super robot kind of look. And it was interesting, just the whole segment. But what was cool was they also talked about, what's going to be happening with this HasLab and what their goals were, because he worked on the original masterpiece and now he's working on this. And he was saying how he kind of wanted to achieve some things that he didn't get to do with the masterpiece, specifically that being able to have a combiner element, because Masterpiece Star Saber was a project, like a side project. It was pretty much, they did a voting and the fans voted they wanted Star Saber to be the next masterpiece. So instead of disrupting what was going on with the masterpiece schedule, they made it as a side project. Hisashi Yuki was the one who worked on that project. And the plan was at some point to do Victory Leo, and they just never got around to doing that second half of the project, and that was that. Maybe one day we'll get Victory Leo. That'd be really cool. But he's happy with this one because he's kind of able to at least do what he wanted to do with the masterpiece in terms of getting the combine element with this one. What I like that he says here too, and it's what I've been saying for a while, and I've gotten to arguments with people about it, but he says himself, this is from the designer himself, so don't even take my word for it. Star Saber's a leader class, Victory Leo is a Voyager, and he even says it himself that that's kind of the price point that they were going for and everything. So, and when they're combined, they will be something that's comparable to that of the Masterpiece Star Saber in terms of size. So the Victory Saber combined is almost in that. And for people that like, I guess, a figure that's more recent that is kind of in that scale that people could be familiar with, like Masterpiece Star Saber is like an inch taller, maybe even a little less, than Commander class Siege Jetfire. And that's pretty much 12 inches to, in that range, pretty much 12 to 13 inches, depending. You want to talk about the backpack or the shoulders, that's where you get into semantics. But, it's just, so that gives you an idea too of how big it'll be. We've seen online, there was mentions that the combined is going to be 13 inches. So that kind of lines up with that in a lot of ways. But it does confirm that, again, this was a leader class toy and a Voyager toy put together at a $179.99 price point. So, again, a little interesting thing. I dig it. I dig what they did, that they did this. I like to see little updates from the Japanese designers because we always get to hear about from the Western designers, they're always up front, but the Japanese designers are almost kind of kept in the shadows. So it's nice to see that. Now, as of this recording, there's about 5 days left for this backing. We're at 13,000. The exact number I'm looking at here is 13,120. So potentially we're going to probably at least hit that V-Lock cannon at the 14,000 mark. That's what I'm hoping. I mean, I really hope that we find another 900 people for that. So that I could at least live with as long as it has the V-Lock cannon. But I mean, It's still going to be a bit of a battle to get to the 17,000 stand and the 20,000 shield. I hope it happens. I really do. But again, like I said before, that price still kind of sketch in my opinion. Still not a fan of that $179.99 price point for a leader and a Voyager, but at this point, you know, I'm complaining in the wind now. It's too late in the game. It's going to happen at some point. I still haven't backed it myself, but I really want to see what happens those last 5 days, and make my call. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel I'm going to back it. You know, I love Star Saber to death. He was one of my teenage purchases back in the day in early eBay. Very much happy with that character. Love him to death. And I like I said, what I'm looking at I think is fantastic. It has lineage. It has history. It has a lot of good stuff going on. I just don't think it's $179 fantastic. But I'm splitting hairs. Let me know what you think about this. I think it's pretty cool. Nice little segments. I hope we kind of get more of these in the end. Another cool thing I just want to mention about Hisashi Yuki is that his personal dream project is to do a masterpiece Super Ginrai, God Ginrai, whatever. So hopefully one day maybe he'll be able to get his second dream now. You know, since he's not going to get probably a Victory Leo masterpiece anytime soon, maybe we could get that masterpiece Ginrai at some point. But that's a whole other story for a whole other time.